between Ethiopia and Kenya is not between Sudan, South Sudan, and so on. Okay? So there is something behind these misconceptions. Okay? And on the third, I want the third one, please, Austin. And the third slide here, you will see something maybe on bankability. Also, it was mentioned in the morning. And a roadmap of infrastructure, or what we have done as master plan. This roadmap and the inadequacy we have in the infrastructure sector. And the emphasis here is also on cross-border infrastructure, which will actually raise this level of economic growth, development, and across borders. Okay, so these three slices maybe they are showing us we need to think about infrastructure in a different way, in a strategic way of thinking. Like, for example, let us say, when you look to SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals, you will find the goal number 9, which is state clearly the role of infrastructure to promote inclusive, sustainable development, recognize the importance of developing regional and international infrastructure to achieve this objective. Regional, international. We will talk in this presentation, and it is actually based on that idea, national, regional, and international, okay? National, regional, and international. I think with this way, we will create those objectives of development, solving the problems of job creation, development of value chains, industries, good access to basic social services, and so on. The other issue on thinking strategically about infrastructure is to look to aspiration 2 in agenda of African Union 2063. Aspiration 2 also talking about developing world-class infrastructure. This is very critical, by the way. World-class. Look to the roads here around us here now. Most of them deteriorated because of lack of this world-class, or the issue of standardization came very clear this morning. Okay? And the three slices also show us or indicate that we need to look to that linkages between, or to those linkages between trade, infrastructure, and development. Because evidence tells us that trade on average has a positive impact on economic development. But you can find like heterogeneity or variation from country or across countries, okay? But in general, infrastructure plays very significant role in economic growth, development, and poverty reduction. And one of the tools to realizing this objective is to have a very efficient trading system. And this is one of the things make this trading system very efficient, is to have a very good infrastructure in place, okay? So investment in infrastructure, look, domestic, regional, international. Let us concentrate for those 3 days on this, this dimension of thinking. We think nationally, regionally, cross-border, between more than 2 countries, 1 country, and we look also international so that we link our regional value chains with the global value chain, okay? Actually, evidence from microeconometric and macroeconometric, showing that better infrastructure or improved better infrastructure will lead us to get higher level of trade, okay? And also, not only higher level of trade, but positive impact on productivity levels. And you know, in the continent and in our region, we have very low productivity levels in all our economic sectors, especially agriculture, for example, and industry and all of them, okay? So having improved infrastructure will improve our productivity levels and improve. I want to share with you an example. If we have like two countries, for example, from our region, trading with US, okay? You can observe that trade cost, the cost of trade, that the main link between infrastructure and trade is the cost of trade, I think. So having good infrastructure means lower cost of trading, and if the infrastructure is not there or it is poor, so you will have like higher trade cost. So these two countries, if they trade with US, and you will see the trade cost is 5 to 6 times larger than the US, for example. If you have Kenya and Ethiopia, for example, any two countries from our region trading with US, you will observe that the cost of trade, it is very important. That is why we have that negative trade balance, persistent negative trade balance, okay? And one of the things also increasing the cost of trade is delays and bureaucracy on cross-border checkpoints, the customs procedures. Even when you travel from country to country, you are not a trader, just a passenger. You will face a lot of problems. Okay, so the issue of trade deficit. Where is it? Some countries in our region, they don't like to trade with each other. Why? We need to ask this question, by the way, and we need to work on it, okay? But the deficit, you know the deficit, that trade deficit, it occurs when imports are more than exports, okay? So if you improve the infrastructure now, you will be in a good status to have increased level or amount of exports, okay? When you increase the level of exports, that you will contribute to solution to that imbalance level of trade, okay? That means infrastructure, improved infrastructure, contribute quantitatively in determining transport cost, the cost of transport, okay? Because if you look to some evidence from research, you will find that poor infrastructure accounts for about 40% of transport cost, 40%. For a country like Kenya, for example, which has Mombasa, Lamu, Port, all that. But for a country like a landlocked country, like for example Uganda, you will find the cost is almost 60% increase due to poor infrastructure or non-existent of good infrastructure, okay? And very importantly, I think we need to link this issue of infrastructure with the now operational African Continental Free Trade Area. Okay, in the morning you have heard about how comes we have an agreement without foundation. The foundation of the agreement is the presence of very good worldly standard, let us say worldly standard infrastructure, okay? And, and when we link it to the African Continental Free Trade Area, I think we need to think about this cross-border infrastructure and think about also, in the morning someone said, why in our countries people are trading illegally or informally. Yeah? Yeah, this informality in our region is very worrying because it's more than 70% or 80% in our region. This is the level of is non-official, recorded type of trading. Okay. In those three slices, sorry, I've taken long on this issue because it is very important. There is the issue of bankability. It was also raised, the issue of having bankable projects. I was reading before 3 days something on bankability. Why? And I observed that if you have no bankable means the internal rate of return, the financial returns from the project, this investment, I mean measures. So if your project is not, it cannot attract investors. Our brothers and sisters who are giving us money, they will not, because our projects are not bankable. They are not attractive to investment, okay? And now with this bankability, I think we need also, and it was mentioned also, to think about capacity development for doing bankable projects. Doing bankable projects, it is not very difficult, but it needs some skill, it needs some training and capacity development, okay? And you can notice that one of the evidence you can find when you read about that gap, like 170 USD million, according to the African Development Bank, the finance gap of infrastructure in Africa. So that gap, one of the reasons for that gap was this issue of bankability, lacking or inadequate preparation of projects and plans, okay, based at least on bankable principles. One thing I want to add is this master plan of Igad is actually based on BIDA. BIDA, as you heard in the morning, is infrastructure development for Africa, okay? Austin, can I have, please? The objectives, you know them, of course, it was mentioned in the morning. Facilitate, I have mentioned most of these objectives during discussing with you this importance of IRIM, of Igad Regional Infrastructure Master Plan. And the objectives, you have them, and it is also here. And we also link the objective of this roundtable with trade competitiveness, which is most of it we mentioned during the discussion about trade and all that, okay? The approach or the strategy now of preparation of this regional master plan, it was actually based on economic corridor approach, you know it. Economic development corridor approach, and it is the same approach used during BIDA preparation, okay? I was thinking why why economic corridors? Why economic corridor approach? Because it is inclusive. It is inclusive, strategic, and sustainable. Okay? Because when you talk about transport corridor alone, is one stage of economic development. Is like one stage. Because some economists, they are saying we have like 5 stages of economic development approach. Okay, one is it could be transport corridor. Then it can be transport and trade facilitation corridor. You see, so the link is very clear between trade and infrastructure. And you will have then, after that, the other stages till you reach the economic corridor. It is actually social and economic corridor, okay? Because on the social side, you will have these basic social services. Most of our people, especially in the rural areas, especially along those corridors, they lack the access. And that is why we have this rural-urban migration. We have many people coming to Nairobi, to Khartoum, to Addis, to Kampala, from rural areas, because we haven't created for them opportunities there. And we have very good approaches. Someone in the morning code mentioned we have very good ideas, but we need to put them in practice. We need to make them action points, okay? So the economic corridor approach, because it has many benefits, okay? And can you go to the, yeah, yes, you can see them here. These are some of them, okay? In addition to access to social services, economic opportunities, value chain, industries, you can't imagine how we are creating development. It is an inclusive and gender sensitive type of planning, okay? Okay. Can you go to the other one, please? Because I don't want to talk too much about the benefits, you know them. And yeah, so the issue of corridor development, the beauty of it is you can have transport and beyond, okay? So it is an integrated way of thinking or doing planning or doing development, okay? And for example, if you apply it to the corridors we have in the region, you will see you can transform, for example, Djibouti and Port Sudan corridor. This Port Sudan corridor can solve a lot of problems our honorable ministers talking about in the morning. The lack of no trade between South Sudan, Ethiopia, Sudan, Eritrea, and so on, South Sudan, Uganda, okay? And that LAPSET is very innovative initiative, actually, this LAPSET. We have visited it before like 2 or 3 weeks, and it is a very potential project or program that will lift us up from poverty, especially that along this corridor going from Lamu up to Juba and Lamu up to Addis Ababa, okay? And also on the other corridors. Austin, can I have the one with the list of, yeah, this is the action plan actually of the regional master plan. You will find it detailed here with even the sector it covered. Transport, whether it is transport, energy, ICT, or water. Okay. On how this master plan was developed, we'll have some information or details about these corridors. In the region, we stick this master plan on about nine corridors. We have like nine, of course, not all of them are currently working, okay, or currently in use. There are like 2 or 3 currently functioning, but with some variation, okay? So North Corridor, Djibouti Corridor, Port Sudan Corridor, Labset Corridor, Berbera, Massawa, Asab, Mogadishu, and Kismayo Corridor, okay? In the following slices, you will find details of each corridor. Like for example here, the Northern Corridor, actually I forgot something very critical, and it was mentioned by His Excellency, the Executive Secretary, the challenge of food security is not because we have no sufficient amount of food. It's because of logistic. It's because of logistic and supply chain and all that. Okay, so this Northern Corridor is also it has a lot of benefits, by the way, and it is very. I think it is the longest corridor in the region. It is about 2,550 kilometers only in Igad, because it covers other countries in East Africa, like Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi. And, and the total population served by this corridor, about 130 million. And now, when you look to the details of the projects or identified priorities in this master plan, you will find ICT priorities, you will find energy priorities, and water. Okay? The second corridor, and actually these are the maps, and the maps has all the details and where exactly these priorities are located. Okay. Djibouti corridor. Now it is multi-sectoral corridor, and 2,600 kilometers, and population 18, about more than 18. Sorry. Population is not mentioned, but the total intercontinental trade is about 18 million tons, and total intra-regional trade is 0.13 million tons, and it has also port, roads, railways, and all that. Okay, and also you will find, as indicated also on the map, you will find the priorities in terms of covering, these subsectors of ICT, transport, and energy. Okay, these are the maps, and it is very detailed, and you will find. I think this master plan is one of the very good achievement of Igad, because now we can take this master plan and just apply it. Some of our countries, by the way, requested to have these master plans because they want to implement them at national level. But as we were discussing since the morning, we invest at national level, but we also think about creation of more of added value. We create added value by investing also in cross-border interconnectivity. Okay, then I have seen Brazil looking at me. So can you? Yeah, but Sudan corridor is actually not functional to its full capacity, but at least from Port Sudan, which is seaport in Sudan on the Red Sea, to Khartoum is not bad, but it needs a lot of work. Okay. And these are the maps showing the different priorities. LabSet now. I do not want to talk about LabSet because this is very ambitious, by the way, plan. Okay, and we have to support that initiative. Okay. Yes, Berbera corridor. This is covering 2 countries, Somalia and Ethiopia, and the population is more than 5 million, and the level of trade is about 1.7 million tons, 0.1 million tons, the intra-regional, I mean the trade within the region. And also it has a port and it has also roads, and now they are working on the power transmission line. Okay. These are the maps. Musawa corridor also, it is covering 3 countries, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Sudan. Okay. Yeah. And this one is Asab corridor, actually covering Eritrea and Ethiopia. And Mogadishu corridor, Somalia, Ethiopia, Kenya. Also, it has all these benefits, plus now the the energy interconnections. Kismayo, I think this is the last one of the corridors, is also covering Somalia and Kenya. And you can notice that we have a lot of benefits if we are seriously working on these corridors. Okay, we just leave those political disagreements and look to our people and make something good for them. And there is last slide, Austin, about the details about the projects and the cost. Okay. So in actually, the plan, we call it a strategic framework because it has short term, medium term, and long term. It is a very ambitious vision, actually. And in transport sector, for example, we have like 61 projects. The cost is mentioned there, 25 million. More than 25 million. This is the short term. And on energy, you have 9 projects. The cost is more than 7 million. In ICT, you have 14. Most of the projects here in ICT sector were both short term because you do not know what will happen in the long run in ICT because it is moving very, yeah. And transboundary water, 5 projects. And the medium, transport 53, energy 11, ICT 7, transboundary 1, and long-term transport. You can observe that transport, yeah, is very critical because it can accommodate all these things. That is why you call it economic corridor development. Okay. The cost is also, as overall, is summed up here. 150 projects and 150 transport, 27 energy, 21 ICT, and 6 transboundary water. The total is more than 204. Okay, and total the cost, the required finance is about 151 more than 151 million USD. Thank you so much. I appreciate your listening, and I'm sorry I'm very tired. I don't know, yesterday I didn't sleep well, so my performance is, is very low, I know. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Director, Economic Cooperation and Regional Integration at the Igad Secretariat, Dr. Osman. We're going to open up discussion for interventions, questions, comments later on. But without further ado, I want to call upon Madam Grace Kimitei. Madam Grace Kimitei is representing the Managing Director of LAPSET Corridor. She is the Head of Strategy and Programs Development at LAPSET. Madam Kimitei, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, as you've all heard, my name is Grace Kimitei from LAPSET. I'm standing here on behalf of our Director General, who is away on other official functions. I'm basically going to talk about one of the corridors. The previous presenter just alluded to us that there are about 9 corridors within Igad, and LAPSET corridor is one of them. Possibly, some of you are wondering, what is this LAPSET? LAPSET is just an acronym, and it stands for Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia Transport Corridor. LAPSET is a multimodal infrastructure program, and as you can see from the acronym, is that it is between Kenya, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. Recently, the program was adopted as a Presidential Infrastructure Champion Initiative, and that is under the African Union. And His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, is the champion. In addition to that is that the program was also admitted as a program for infrastructure development in Africa. I think the previous presenters or the previous panelists have been talking about PIDA. So it is one of the programs under PIDA, and 3 of its projects were selected under the Priority Action Plan 2. We've also seen from the previous presenters is that one of the importance of the corridors is that it opens up the continent. In other words, for LAPSET, it is one of the programs that is key in the facilitation of African continental free trade area. In addition to that, we've got issues to do with regional integration, the peace, and all this championed under Africa Agenda 2063. Next. That is just the corridor, how it looks like. You can see it begins from Lamu and to Juba. And the dream is that it will connect to West Africa, that is to Douala, and to Yemen on the other side, and of course to the Red Sea, to the Far East. So for LAPSET corridor program, it has got next lap, It has got several components. This is the Lamu port, the port of Lamu. It has got the highways. It has got the oil pipelines. It also has the railway, the international airports, the resort cities, and this is more specifically the number 7 one, the High Grand Falls. This is a multipurpose dam that is expected to supply water to the Lamu port and the Lamu region. Because around the Lamu port, it is expected that it will have several components just to serve the port. We're also thinking of a special economic zone around the Lamu area. Next slide. I would want to these are just the development partners who've helped us reach where we are. But in the next slide, I'm going to go into the details of exactly where we are. The construction of the Lamu port began in 2016. And as of course, it was launched in 2012. But the construction of the port began in 2016. So the first berth is already complete. It was commissioned and it was operationalized just very recently. Then we've got other two extra ports, extra berths. That is berth 2 and 3, which we were expecting to finalize them by the end of December. And it is also expected that they'll be commissioned early next year. We've got other auxiliary facilities within the port, which are also complete, like the port workshop, the port headquarters office, the access roads, all that are completed. And from the project's profile booklet by Igad, I saw that it indicates that the LAPSET will be constructing 32 berths. That has since been revised to 23 berths, meaning we are now remaining with 20 berths, because one has been completed and the other one is almost near completion. So it is anticipated that the remaining 20 berths are to be developed through the PPP framework. And to serve this port, or rather for evacuation purposes, we've got the highways, which are the off-take routes to Ethiopia and to South Sudan, and this is about 1,800 kilometers. Most of the sections of this road are either completed or under construction. And in some sections, the construction work is yet to begin. So in the next slide, you can see there, these are the various batches. From Isiolo all the way to Marsabit to Moyale, that is done. And this is 505 kilometers. And as you can see, it was completed way back in 2016. The road linkage between Isiolo and Nairobi, that is the capital of Kenya, is already completed. And there's some sections like Lokichar, Lodwar, Nakodok, which is 338 kilometers. The road is under construction, and we are anticipating that it will be completed by the end of this calendar year. We've got other sections of the Lamu, Garissa, Isiolo. Some work has commenced, although it is only being upgraded. But maybe in future, it needs to be upgraded to bitumen standard. As at now, it's only being upgraded to gravel standard. And those are the other evacuation routes. The Lamu, Garissa, Isiolo, which I've said it is being upgraded. Then we've got an alternative route from Lamu to Garissa, which I can say it's complete. The Lamu Witu Garsen road is completed, but the Lamu Hola Madogo is still under rehabilitation. Then we have the standard gauge rail. I think these are details which can be. Okay, let me say something about this. As you can see, there are sections which are still outstanding between Garissa and is it Lokori Lokichar? Yeah, those are the sections that the designs have only been completed, but the real work is still to start. However, we've also been having issues on route realignment because of one reason or another. In some instances, we find that the route is passing through military installations or where it is earmarked for an airport. So that has necessitated the realignment of the routes. We also have the standard gauge rail, railway line, which is also one of the projects within the program. And as you can see, the preliminary design and feasibility studies were completed way back. And what is needed is the bilateral agreements between Kenya and Ethiopia, which are already signed. There's need to review them and maybe conceptualize them or contextualize them. And in addition to that is that we've had bilateral agreements, which I've said need to be reviewed. Then we also need to have in place a technical coordination committee to develop the joint implementation and funding strategy. We also have the oil pipeline, which again is still work in progress. And we've got some of the investment opportunities within also the corridor. We've got the inner corridor and the outer corridor. As I said, the 20 berths, the remaining 20 berths are available for private sector to be engaged in. And what we're looking forward to is like an agricultural bulk, the oil terminal jetty, and the fishing berth, which the private sector can take advantage of. And I don't know whether I've mentioned, we also have the international airports, sorry. It is anticipated that airports will be developed along the corridor. And in the outer corridor, we've got an area of 50 kilometers on either side of the corridor, which will be, the 50 kilometers on either side will be available for investors, either for manufacturing of value addition. The resort cities, in this case, are available for tourism facilitation. Then along the corridor, we're also thinking of the rest stations, which are basically restaurants, accommodation facilities, shopping centers, and others. Then we've got the industrial and logistical parks, just to mention a few. How do we ensure that the LAPSSET improves the global competitiveness? Is that it will facilitate regional integration. It also improves freight, transit, and logistic performance, improving market access, and of course, creating regional infrastructure corridor. And of course, the issue of supporting to the African continental free trade area. So for the short period that we've been in place, is that at least we've seen some of the lessons that can be borrowed from this LAPSSET corridor. And one of them is that it creates a larger and new markets with greater multiplier effects and backward and forward linkages, transform benefiting communities, that is the 50 kilometers on either side. You find that it will enhance the socio-economic profile of the countries, and I think this is one of the objectives of this of these corridors. And it will also catalyze and energize other new sectors within the corridor. And of course, we are hoping that, like for example, with the use of Lamu Port, the inefficiencies in other ports, probably as a result of the time taken to clear cargo, that will not be, With the Lamu port, I mean, it's one of the ports which investors can take advantage of, because that wastage of time, it will not be there. So it will create efficiency and lower the cost of doing business. Thank you. I think that is the end of the presentation. Yeah. Thank you very much. And maybe to add into that is that we recently had, we've had 2 ministerial meetings on establishment on regional coordination mechanism. And the 3rd meeting is being planned to take place in Juba, sometimes next year in February. This is to hasten the process of implementation of the program or the various projects within the corridor in the three states of Ethiopia, Kenya, and South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Grace Kimitei. Please convey our gratitude to the Director General, Dr. Maina Kiondo, who could not join us, but I think you did a brilliant job on behalf of LAPSSET Corridor. You also helped us break what had been started in the morning, in that we were dealing with only men coming up the podium, but at least you've given us that feminine touch. So hardware and software indeed work together. Thank you very much, and we move on from there. Having said that, I want to open the 2 presentations for discussion. If there are any comments, reactions, or questions for clarification, the floor is open. I have the program coordinator for infrastructure at the Igad Secretariat, Zakaria Kingori. Please come. So there could be some questions or clarification sought from you. So the floor is open as Zakaria walks towards me. Do I see any hand? Looks like the lunch was quite good. Yeah. So I have an intervention from the floor. Go ahead, sir. Please just state your
name. My name is Edward Kusewa from Kenya. I just want to ask the last presenter, the one who's done a presentation on LAPSSET, why did you choose to do Lamu Port and we had Mombasa Port? Wouldn't it have been cost effective if the Mombasa Port was modernized and then resources were actually put into other projects? So it's just my question.
As she's processing that question, do we have any other comment, reaction? Kenya?
Thank you very much. My name is James Zeuri from the Ministry of Transport, Kenya. In the morning, the PS, Professor Maringa, talked about standards. And when I was going through the concept note, I noted that some of the corridors, the road, the carriageway has been given a width of 7 meters and the shoulders 1.5 meters. And while in Kenya we have shoulders with the which are 2 meters wide, so making the width of the road 11 meters in Kenya. But in some countries within the region, that width is 10 meters. I think this is something that needs to be looked into, because when we talk about, say, for example, Northern Corridor or Lapset Corridor, we are talking about the same road even across the countries. Thank you.
See Ethiopia. Please, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, the presenters, for the nice presentation. I'm Dr. Engineer Abio Sinamo from Ministry of Innovation and Technology, Director General for ICT sector. Of course, the roadmap and the master plan try to address issues of infrastructure, mainly with highway and related infrastructures. But when we see from the demand, particularly the changes, the fast changing nature of infrastructures, there is a typical and unique nature, particularly in the area of ICT. So the collaborations shall also be emphasized on such dynamic infrastructures, such that at borders, for example, if we have infrastructures developed for cross-border areas, then market even can be facilitated through electronic payments, electronic services, and applications. So I think we are really, this is not necessarily a question for the presenters, but in a general sense, we are really a bit far on the issue which we are highly marginalized. At the very beginning, the marginalization is very high on such types of infrastructures. And again, even now, we are not working on it as expected. So I need just to listen the concerns and reflections in this regard, such that we should just retune or refocus our plans on the master plan, such that development partners and privates, even inter-nations PPP modalities can also be in place in order to facilitate the ICT infrastructure development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If Madam Grace, you could take the first question, and then the second question, I think Dr. Osman can address the issue of standardization. I think our colleague from Kenya is pointing out to a disparity when it comes to road construction or development. So we don't have like a regional standardization to that. I think the comment from Ethiopia is food for thought. As we move forward in the next couple of days, I think it's something we will be dwelling with, the ICT issue. At the moment, we seem to be lagging behind in that particular area. So, Madam Grace, you have the floor.
Oh, okay. I suppose I can respond from here. Okay. The question was why Lamu Port? Why choose Lamu Port instead of using Mombasa? The issue of constructing a port in Lamu was mooted way back in 1980s. It's only that it wasn't constructed. So basically, the Lamu Port, as from my presentation, is that it serves South Sudan. It can serve South Sudan and Ethiopia. One of the unique characteristics of the Lamu Port is that it is a deep sea port, and it can handle bigger ships than what Mombasa can handle. It has a depth of 17.5 meters, whereas Mombasa is far much less than that. There is also the issue of decongesting the Mombasa port. So by constructing the Lamu port, efficiency will be increased. in terms of the time in which cargo waits before it is cleared. The other thing is that development has to be deliberate. With the Lamu port to Isiolo, to Moyale, from Isiolo to Turkana, you find that it is basically to open up those regions or those areas. It is to open up those areas for trade and for them all, to be integrated with the rest of the country. Thank you very much. I hope that was the question I was asked.
And you responded to it adequately. I hope our brother, you're satisfied by that, but if not, you can have a B2B with her, business-to-business interaction, and maybe, who knows, you might throw in some ideas. It might even require now to change the whole name of LAPSET to something else, but that's another story for another day. So, Dr. Osman, the question of standardization.
Yes, I'm going to...
Zakaria, go
yes,
ahead.
I'm going to reply to that. And I would say that that was a good observation from Kenya. And what we can do as a region is to standardize, especially on the international corridors. And I think having the 7 meters width with 2 meters shoulders each side, totaling 4 plus 7, 11 meters, would be a good standard for the region. I think we need to standardize the standards of the infrastructure in the region, including the size of the roads. So I think that is an issue that we look at, and I think it's good to have a same standard of infrastructure. There are so many other issues that will need to be harmonized, including the road furniture. So this is an issue that we'll look at. And thank you.
Well, can I add something also? I don't know whether it is in the same line of thinking, but the issue of climate resilient infrastructure, whether it is, I think it is maybe directly or indirectly related to standards, but having climate resilient, because we do not want to build roads and when it rains for the first time, you will find no road and no sea. So I mean, in the context of Africa, we usually forget to build roads or infrastructure that are meeting climate resiliency. Okay, and also I forgot something when I presented, and it is also, of course, in our master plan, Igad master plan, the issue of climate resiliency was considered. It was considered. But when we go to practice, to action, I think we need to think about it, and we link it with capacity development. By the way, creation of awareness about climate resilient infrastructure is very critical. There is another issue, not related to this, but I forgot to mention it. The gender inclusivity. Gender inclusive. This corridor approach has many, many benefits, of course. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Director, for raising those, expanding the discussion so that it's not just standardization, looking at the measurement of the roads, but other issues that come to play. Today I've learned about climate resilient infrastructure and also having gender consideration. when it comes to design and development of these infrastructures. We tend to maybe overlook some of these soft issues, but that have very great ramification. Having said that, we want to end this session unless somebody else has an issue. The Africa Development Bank, please, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. A quick one, just to make a question on standardization worse than it was asked. The width of the road is actually one of the least considerations to worry about. What you should worry about is fact of the pavement strength. And not just the pavement strength, it's related to the loading. Many countries in East Africa, including the Horn of Africa, have different load limits. So some of them will have low, which means a truck which is coming from a country with a higher limit will not be allowed into their countries. So that has to be harmonized. And the other one is just how you drive your vehicles. Kenya drives on the left-hand side, Ethiopia drives on the left-hand side. Now, often you don't think so, there's a problem here, but in Ethiopia you cannot at all drive a right-hand side, a right-hand driven car. Is that the correct way to say it? You cannot. In Kenya you're allowed to drive a left-hand car on transit. So there's a limit, there's a small allowance, but there's no allowance. So you can imagine what will happen is if you drive your vehicle, you must leave it at the border and use another vehicle to cross. So some of these harmonizations have to be done. So actually it's critical. And the bank is working, has been working with, at least on some of the projects, Mombasa, Nairobi, Addis Ababa, to also standardize and harmonize the regulations so that there is some way of interaction. Thank you.
Thank you very much from the Africa Development Bank, and indeed those are issues I think we will be diving into in more detail when we break into groups, so that when we leave this place in a couple of days, we have things to take home and work on further. Having said that, once again, I want to thank all of you for this session. We want to take a break, but before we take a break, there are a couple of announcements. One is that all participants from Djibouti, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Uganda, you are requested to submit your COVID receipts, boarding passes, and visa receipts to the Secretariat desk outside so that your payments can be processed immediately. So we are going to come back into breakaway sessions. This hall is going to be split into three. And we're going to have one of the rooms will be handling ICT matters. So our brother from Ethiopia, we have a presentation in the breakaway session, one of which chaired by Sudan, and with a presentation from Suntarian Group on ICT. And then the second group will be chaired by South Sudan on energy. And we have a presentation coming to us virtually from the International Energy Agency. And then last but not least, we have a breakaway session chaired by Djibouti on water with a presentation from our friend from African Consulting Engineers. So let's break for 20 minutes, and then we give time for the hotel to reorganize the room. Thank you, and see you in a short while.